Hi, I'm John Danner. Welcome to this edition of The Resilient Entrepreneur, Building Success and Surviving Setbacks with my co-author, Mark Cooper-Smith, and our sponsor, the NIIC. Mark and I have talked with you about many dimensions of this topic. We've suggested to you that all of us are trying to turn failure from what it is, which is a regrettable event, into something that it can be, which is a strategic resource. And we mean truly strategic resource. After all, it's a resource you've created. You and your team have their fingerprints on it, probably. Why not take advantage of it? Why not use the insights that are contained within that failure? And that's what I want to focus on, because we've suggested that failure is like gravity. It's an inevitable, inexorable, ubiquitous phenomenon. It's a fact of nature. It's a force of nature even. We've suggested that gravity, to use an analogy with flight, gravity is one of the four forces that allows us to fly. Maybe in the same way that failure is one of the forces in entrepreneurship that may allow us to succeed. Whatever we do with it, we want to take failure out of the closet. And we've given you some tools and some suggestions and exercises to begin to do that. The 7-stage failure value cycle, which Mark introduced you to. The report card that we want you to use to avoid flunking failure. That would not be a good thing after all of our time together, have you walk away saying, oh my gosh, I flunked failure. Now, try the report card. It's there, it's for free. It's in the chapter in our book if you want to go into more detail, but you can just use what's on the website and begin to get a sense of how to put that failure value cycle to work. In chapter 11, we've given you a lot of additional ideas about how you can create a more failure savvy organization in your venture, even if it's just you. But if you've got a colleague or two or a team of colleagues trying to help you build your business, I want to leave you with 6 things that you can start to do right now. The first is, look at yourself. Start with your own attitudes about this issue of failure. Can you talk about it? Are you comfortable with others talking about it? Because in any organization, people will look to the leader first to see what's okay to talk about. What's okay, what's fair, what's safe for people to talk about. And it might be time for you to reacquaint yourself with your own attitudes about failure. Are you comfortable with discussing it? And more importantly, open to learning from it, as opposed to dismissing it or denying it or trying to defy it in some way. Second, if you have another colleague or more, chances are it's the elephant in the room. Ask yourself, why is it that in most business meetings, many people choose to sit silently when they have questions, when they have concerns, when they have an idea, when they have a point of view that they don't share? Do you think they don't care about the company? Do you think they don't want to succeed? I doubt it. I think these people are afraid of failure, afraid of being laughed at, afraid of being rejected, afraid of being judged. Your job as a leader is to make it safe for this topic to get talked about. It's in your interest to do that. If it's not talked about, it's not being dealt with. If it's not flagged early, chances are you're paying the consequences of delayed attention to the failures that are going on in your own business right now. So get it out in the open. Apply what I explained to you in an earlier session is the ungolden rule, which is do unto yourself before others can do unto you, with particular reference to the crown jewels of your organization, of your venture, the things that you simply could not exist without. Those are the things to begin to fix and protect right now. Fourth, you might think about your business as a portfolio of failure zones. In some businesses, indeed in most businesses, there are places where failure should never be accepted, never be excused. if you're dealing with life and safety, matters of ethics, those are places where you don't want to tolerate failure regardless of the consequences. And that's fine. But there are other portions of your business where you do want to welcome failure because it's the necessary ingredient to climb the stair step of improvement. And in some cases, you may actually want to invite failure. If you're looking for a brand new product, if you're looking for a new strategy, if you want to find a new way of doing business, if you want to encourage your employees to come up with new ways that you can create value in your market for your customers and potentially for your investors, that may be a place where you actually want to invite failure in. Fifth, you're probably not going to be able to prevent failure from happening. Most of us can't, but you can do a better job of managing how failures end. Think back to the discussion we shared with you about the force multipliers of failure, how the memory of past failure influences and distorts and exaggerates the fear of future failure. Memory and fear, force multipliers. What we remember is how those emotional experiences end. And that's where you can do a better job of helping your employees and indeed yourself focus more on creating a softer landing, a more positive ending when failure does happen, which it will. So ask yourself about the order of questions that come to you or your colleagues when failure occurs in your business. If you start with who, you are probably not going to get the answers that contain real insight to improve your likelihood of future success. Why not try this instead? What happened? Where did it happen? How'd that happen? Why did it happen? Focus on those questions. And then maybe you ask the question of who was involved. And if you want a very simple reminder of that, think about what happens when you point a finger at somebody. Point a finger at somebody. 3 of those fingers are pointing back at you. And chances are, if you approach this issue of failure with humility and maybe a little humor, you might find that your own fingerprints are on some of the failures that you were so concerned about. It's too easy to turn failure into an opportunity to scapegoat somebody, to blame somebody. And with the blame comes shame. And with the shame comes reluctance to even talk about it, to share it, to identify it, to fix it. Now, this one may seem like heresy. Mark and I teach at the business school at University of California, Berkeley. But here we are suggesting that you don't always think like an MBA. What do we mean by that in the context of failure? Well, first, you might think of yourself as a detective. You're trying to find out what happened here. What went on? Why'd this happen? Or if you want to surrender your looking glass, your magnifying glass, maybe you think a little bit like an artist. What are you looking at here? The letter R? Or somebody holding a balloon? Artists are very good at using what they call negative space to show us new ways of seeing things that we weren't quite aware of at first glance. And to some extent, failures in most organizations are a kind of negative space. Use them the way an artist might use them. How can they show you what's really going on? How can they give you another perspective on your business? Or if you have a green thumb and you're a gardener or a farmer, think about failure like a compost heap. Do you want to eat it? No. Does it smell good? Probably not. But in that compost heap of those failures lie the ingredients for potentially new successes, a new crop of success, something that looks good, something that works well, something that might in fact be the very success that you are looking for. And perhaps most importantly, you might want to think like a scientist. Mark and I have used the term experiment and experimentation a lot in this series. Think about using those words, because when you hear the term experiment, Do you expect all experiments or even most experiments to succeed? Probably not. But we do expect experiments to lead to discovery, to show us where we've been mistaken, to give us insights that we hadn't expected. And that's what business needs in order to succeed. New insights, new discoveries, new ways to improve the assumptions and the thinking on which your entire venture is based. So think like an experiment, because most of the things we do as entrepreneurs are experiments. The person we hire, the team we organize, the product we design, the location we establish, the business model we use, the sales pitch we try with our customers, the ad campaign, they're all experiments. They are all stabs in the dark to some extent. Treat them as such. Learn from them. Pay attention to them. And when we said early on that most organizations want growth, they want innovation, and they want employees that are genuinely engaged, those are the three things that most organizations want. But in many ways, those three things depend on the one thing that nobody wants, which is failure. They all connect. You can't have innovation without failure. You can't have the trust that is the foundation of engaged employees without proving to them that when failure is present, you have their back and they have their own backs when failure is around. So let me try to sum up a little bit. We are not suggesting that in all circumstances you exonerate failure. No. We are suggesting that in most circumstances, both for your own benefit and for the benefit of your team and employees, that you commiserate when failure happens. You show them that you're aware of it. You give them an opportunity to talk about it and feel bad about it because, as we said, it's a regret. In some circumstances, you actually may want to celebrate failure occasionally. I'll give you an example. The CEO of Roche Pharmaceutical, which is one of the biggest and most successful pharmaceutical companies in the world, Severn Schwan, when his science team comes back from the lab and says, you know, that wonder drug we were so hopeful about, it's just not testing the way we wanted it to. It doesn't look like it's going to work. He doesn't fire them. He throws them a champagne lunch. Why? Because if those talented people who worked hard to try to find success, if those people are gone, who is it that's going to find the next wonder drug that does prove out in the next round of clinical studies? Who's going to be around? Who's going to learn from the experience of trying nobly, but not succeeding? So in those circumstances, you might in fact want to celebrate. But in all cases, we are suggesting that you liberate this topic. You make it free for people to talk about, easier for people to talk about, for you to think about, for you to focus on. And maybe this is a way to sum up our suggestion to you. Failure, in so many ways, is today's lesson for tomorrow. You've already paid the tuition for it. You might as well get the education that goes with it. So on behalf of Mark and myself, thank you for spending time with us during this series. We'd love to have your comments and suggestions and feedback. And thank you to the NIIC for inviting us back to Indiana to share some of these ideas that we hope will prove useful to you in pursuing your own dreams for success of the ventures that you are building. Good luck.